Welcome, everybody, to the AFC Northcast. I'm Justin, here joined with Joey this time. Chad's got some business to take care of, so he will not be joining us for this episode or the next one, which is not that big of a deal because it's a short week. Well, not necessarily a short week. There's not very many divisional games happening this week. The Steelers and the Browns are on a bye, so it makes sense. It'll all be good. It'll be okay. We will survive. We'll persevere. So this week,
hopefully the podcast survives with just you and I.
Yeah, I know. Who could imagine? I don't even know if we'll be able to get through one. So with that, this week, or this episode at least, we're going to do the preview for this week, but we're also going to do kind of like a state of the division, right? So it's week 6, week 7 is about to be coming up. We're trying to cue in a little bit better with the pictures of who we think the teams are, where we think they're at. Where we think they'll land, that kind of stuff. So that'll be fun. With that, of course, as always, I'm going to plug it every time. Come join us live, guys. Come check us out, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and interact with us live. Let us know how you feel. Let us know your thoughts and your concerns, whatever those might be, and we'll interact with that live. Something notable right now, there's a Thursday night game. The division's going to have some Thursday night games coming up here shortly, so it'll be fun, I think, if we watch the games while we're doing the podcast and you guys come join us. So look forward to that for sure. But feel free to chime in.
Yeah, if you're watching live and you're an AFC North fan, everybody in the division plays both of these teams this year.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. So we're going to get a little bit of a picture.
No. That's not true.
Yeah, with the Broncos, I was thinking.
We don't play the AFC because I was like, well, we play all the West Coast teams, but that's just on the NFC
Well, I was
side.
thinking, I was like, oh, yeah, the Browns are playing the Broncos coming up. But, yeah. Does everybody... I don't know.
So disregard. No, we play the AFC East.
Yeah. So anyways, with that, how's it going, Joey?
Not bad. Some really recent news. Patrick Mahomes left the game earlier with a lower body injury. He's been dealing with like some ankle stuff, and they just updated the injury report that he's out for this game with a knee.
Ooh.
So not great. It was on a QB sneak.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of was at the bottom of a pile and.
So who's backing him up?
Everybody else got up. He did not. Matt Moore.
The ever familiar.
Getting epic helmet-to-helmet shot at Heinz Field in the playoffs a couple years ago when he was quarterbacking for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
He's been around a little bit. I think he quarterbacked for the Panthers, and he's got a positive touchdown interception ratio for his career. So. We'll see.
Yeah, that's good.
But speaking of career backup quarterbacks, the Brockett ship retired today.
You know, here's a question: is it really retired when no one will sign you?
So he retired with a career earnings of like $42.75 million.
Good for him, man.
And his career record is 15-15. And so somebody calculated that he made $2.75 million per win in the NFL.
Oh my gosh. But wait a second. If his wins and losses are equal, then he also made the same amount of money per loss. Yeah. That's, I think, the more interesting stat, right? Like, shit, man. Throw me in there for $2.5 million. No, I don't know if I'd fucking survive a single play.
So he's got some ties to the Browns, obviously. The trade that Houston made where they paid and gave the Browns a second-round draft pick for Brock Osweiler, and everybody was talking about how foolish it was for the Browns to undertake his contract and this and that. You know who that second-round pick turned into?
Was it Nick Chubb?
Sure was.
It's a good guess.
So, all in all, the Browns, I would say, came out ahead on that trade.
For sure. You know, I was just saying, throw me in for like $2.5 million a game, and then I was like, I don't know if I'd be able to survive. I was actually just looking up. You know, Philip Lindsay is he's 5'8", 190. Bro, you could be a running back for the Broncos.
I know.
Look at that, man. What are you doing with your life, man?
I'd be a bruiser. A fullback. I'd have to be a fullback.
Yeah.
Like Zach Zenner.
Yeah.
Is that the guy's name? Joe Flacco just threw a pass to his tight end into triple coverage.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and he got murdered. So, you know. But, Joe Flacco just got murdered. I think I'm ahead of you a little bit. Are you watching it?
He spent the whole night getting murdered.
Oh, never mind. That was a play from before that they were showing. Yeah, he's been getting murdered quite a bit. Murked out, some people might say. He does not look happy. Dang. That's rough, man. I don't know. It's weird because, like I said, the Broncos have been, like, not doing too bad lately. So the Browns play the Broncos. Who else? Does anyone else play the Broncos or the Chiefs this year? No? Okay.
The Ravens play the Chiefs, but no one else does.
Right. Yeah, whatever. So, anyways, let's get... So,
Joe Flacco, he still throws a really pretty ball.
Yeah.
It's still real. It's easy to see how someone could just fall in love with that, like, the tight spiral. Right. He throws a really nice ball. But he's also taken, like, 4 unnecessary sacks in this game and, like, fumbled on 2 of them. So,
yeah. But, let's get rolling into some AFC North, some current AFC North, we should say. So let's talk about some previews of the games. Let's talk about the good one, the exciting one first. The Ravens playing the Seahawks. Now, this was kind of strange because last year we talked about it and we said it was like the mirror match, right? When the Ravens played the Seahawks. But, you know, as much as they've both changed a bunch, they both are kind of also the same this year too. As far as like, I would even like maybe go as far as to say like big brother, little brother kind of a thing, right? You know, Russell Wilson's been passing a lot more than he's been running this year, and he's been much more accurate. Well, not much more, but he's been, you know, very accurate with it, obviously. The defense is kind of a shadow of itself as far as what it used to be. Both teams are still running the ball really well, too. So it's just so strange that both of them have changed so much, but they've both changed kind of in the same direction.
Yeah, so I wrote down all the like total rankings to try to get a feel for like where there's big gaps for these teams, and there really aren't many. The Ravens' strength obviously is rush compared to pass. Seattle is the same. Their disparity by like spots is less, but the Ravens have the first ranked rush offense in the league, and Seattle's is the 9th ranked. The Ravens pass is 19th. Seattle's is 25th. So Seattle has a 25th ranked pass offense, and the Ravens have the 25th ranked pass defense. Which they've added Marcus Peters to. Jimmy Smith has been back to practice this week, but he's still kind of a game time decision. And Wink Martindale was asked about whether or not Marcus Peters was going to play. And Wink Martindale told reporters, he said he'd let me know by Friday if he's ready to go the whole game. And I said, just lie to me and tell me you are, and we'll just go play you. So nice. Wink Martindale's ready to throw this guy in there.
Right.
And as much as he was even a punchline during one of our episodes this week on the Thursday night game against the Seahawks for the Rams, where he got burnt a couple times. That's kind of the book on him. He's very aggressive, and so he's susceptible to double moves. But he's still one of the more avoided corners in the league. So far this year, he's had 241 coverage snaps and like 16 targets. So he doesn't get thrown at a lot. The downside to it is that Russell Wilson is one of like the chief guys that exploits Marcus Peters. So he had a really hard time with Tyler Lockett a couple weeks ago, and so that's worrisome. And you got to think that Humphrey's probably going to match up on DK Metcalf just for size reasons. So you don't want Marcus Peters on an island with DK Metcalf. So I think these teams are still pretty much mirror images. Like offensively, the Seahawks rank below the Ravens in everything, but everything trends about the same. You know, they're better running than passing.
Right.
They still score a lot of points. They're fifth in the league in points scored. And same with defense. Their run defense is stronger than their pass defense, and they give up a fair amount of points. And so they actually give up more points than the Ravens do. So I think this game is pretty much a toss-up. Marlon Humphrey, to your credit, even said this week that they say all the time that they would hate to play Lamar. And he said pretty much this week, they are playing Lamar a couple years down the road. Like if Lamar continued to develop and continued to polish, that's what Russell Wilson is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a fucking killer, man. The Browns found out last week. The Steelers found out early in the season. Like, you can never count those guys out. Seattle's a really tough place to play. As far as X's and O's, other than adding Marcus Peters, I mean, I think we just know what these teams are. And I think it'll be a close game. And I think it'll be really fun. Should be really fun. I don't think Seattle's built for blowouts anyways. If they're going to win or lose close games pretty much all year, I think.
Yeah, it's really weird how they consistently do that, like no matter what, at least for the last couple of years. One of the things I kind of wanted to bring up, and the only reason I actually know this is because of fantasy, but apparently Seattle's done really poorly against tight ends this year. So it'll be interesting to see if Mark Andrews or Nick Boyle or anybody blows up. So that could be good because, of course, you know, we've seen that he makes good connections with his tight ends. So what about Marquise Brown? Is he out or is he in? What's going on with him?
He has been out. He was out of practice on Wednesday, I believe.
Let's, impromptu. See if we can find something out about that. He's listed as questionable right now. He was sidelined for the Thursday's practice, so we'll see what happens. Oh, got some noise. Sorry. Sometimes you go to these websites and they just like autoplay some shitty video and
blast you with some ads.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that'll be interesting. There's really no easy way to call the game. Flip a coin and hope for the best. I'm picking Seattle only just because, you know, Russell Wilson's been, you know, the talk of the MVP this year, right? And for very good reasons, you know. So as far as defenses go, you know, we would probably disagree, but I think the Browns do have a little bit better defense than the Ravens do right now, even being down their corners. So I think in that aspect, you know, Russell Wilson's going to figure out how to make some things happen. So that's kind of my big reason and my big takeaway for why I'm picking the Seahawks. But again, man, it feels like a coin flip.
Yeah, I've said this year, there's not a game that the Ravens will be in this year that they can't win. And so that pretty much guarantees that I'm going to pick them every week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be really close. I think one potential difference maker in, you know, late game situations with Russell Wilson is Earl Thomas is very familiar. So that could be a plus. You know, he practiced against Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, these guys, and hopefully he can back up Marcus Peters depending on how much playtime he ends up getting. The Ravens secondary with the addition of Marcus Peters, I know a lot of people like to make fun of Marcus Peters. But before adding Jalen Ramsey, the Rams were in the position where Marcus Peters was their number one corner.
Right.
And Marcus Peters, once Jimmy Smith gets back, will at the very least just be in a rotation with Brandon Carr and Jimmy Smith and Marlon Humphrey. And that's a pretty fucking solid cornerback rotation. So Chuck Clark has been a very capable fill-in at strong safety, and Earl Thomas maybe has started to lose a step. But he still doesn't get tried, you know. on reputation alone, pretty much he doesn't get tried, and so it'll be an interesting battle of strength versus strength this weekend for sure.
Yeah, I think it's to the point of Marcus Peters. It's one of those things that you hear every now and then that kind of, I think, rings true. Not even think. I think it's almost kind of objective. But, like, with some of the best corners, sometimes it's hard after they have a good year or even a good couple of years to continue to see their production because they just don't really get targeted, right? So people kind of start to sleep on them, right? So we'll see, if he can, makes an impact, continues to make an impact or whatever the case might be in the game. So that'll be interesting to see, in a new team. But this is
he leads the league in interceptions,
right?
Because he's got an interesting personality. He's got a difficult personality, and that's kind of what went wrong in Kansas City.
And I'm thinking that's what might have happened with the Rams too, because they're not living up to expectations this year. So I'm wondering if that maybe had something to do with it.
Yeah. But he leads the league in interceptions since he was drafted. It's like 24 in 4 years, and he only had 3 last year. So that tells you how productive he's been. And he should see a lot more targets playing across the field from Marlon Humphrey now. So,
yeah, for sure. Well, let's rotate that over to the Bengals and talk about their game this week. Man, here at the AFC Northcast, we're jagging off. All right, look, we've been doing it. So, yeah, man, the Jaguars are hot right now. All right, and Minshew Mania is the real deal. It's happening, and the Bengals just have not found a stride at all. They're winning. They're just winning very poorly is the best way to put it. They're not winning well. They're not losing gracefully is what I meant to say. They're losing very poorly. So, what do you think, Joey?
Yeah, it feels like a conflict of interest for me because I want to go like full jagging off on this game. But we do have to represent the Bengals. They're just the injury luck on this football team has been so bad.
Right.
So Sean Williams, safety, out. Drake Kirkpatrick, out. William Jackson, number 1 corner, played through a shoulder injury on Sunday against the Ravens, out for a couple weeks. So their starting corners are going to be B.W. Webb and Tony McRae. And then some guy they just promoted from the P squad is going to be the nickel this week.
Right.
So that's not great, man. The Jags aren't like a killer pass offense, but Minshew has shown he's got a pretty good rapport with DJ Chark, and he's been a capable passer. They didn't do great last week against New Orleans, but that New Orleans defense is legit, man. And so the Bengals just have so many injuries.
Right. Well, I think what's also important
on defense specifically, and they're just very vulnerable.
I think what's also important to note is that Leonard Fournette is still the real deal. So he's still killing it in Jacksonville, and the Bengals just cannot stop the run, like period, the end. So it looks like, from an offensive standpoint for the Jaguars, they have every opportunity to score in whatever way they really want to. So that's pretty unfortunate for them. Now, of course, Jalen Ramsey is gone from the Jaguars now, but as far as how that impacts the Bengals, I don't know, man. They just can't find their stride. What's up?
Guess who's back in practice?
AJ Green?
AJ's back.
Interesting.
So that's helpful. I think the problem when the Bengals have the ball is going to be pass protection.
Right.
Just the offensive line in general. They haven't got Mixon going all year long. We've already talked about how relatively toothless the Ravens pass rush is this year. The Jaguars are the opposite. Yannick Ngakoue is an absolute stud. they've got Josh Allen, Calais Campbell.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
they've got a murderer's row up front. And it could mean big, big problems for Andy Dalton, whether AJ's there or not on Sunday.
Right. So, how do you see this game swinging?
I think the Jags are going to... I think it's a bounce-back game for the Jaguars. They just played a really tough game
with the Saints.
Against the Saints, and I think they smash the shit out of the Bengals. They're so hurt in the secondary. I think they'll have their way on offense. Leonard Fournette's second in the AFC in rushing, and he's averaging 5.1 yards a carry. So, yeah, I don't think the Bengals have much hope. The only hope they have is that they can get in a track meet, and the Jags really miss Jalen Ramsey. If AJ can be back and be full, and Tyler Boyd gets the benefit of not having the double coverages and not having all the attention, they have a shot. But it's a long shot for sure. It's a puncher's chance, if anything.
Right. You know, I'd love to see this game like kind of swing in the direction of the Bengals because I think more than anything, this is one of the games that if they won coming up here, that we'd be like, oh, well, wait a minute, guys, you know, because the Jaguars are kind of on that hot streak, and they've got some tough opponents coming up after this. So if the Bengals are looking to get a win, you know, I guess they got to do it sooner than later. I don't know. They've got some tough shit going on.
People were upset that we're not going to get AJ Green, Jalen Ramsey part 2, because the last time they faced off, AJ Green put him in a sleeper hold and threw him to the ground, and something very uncharacteristic of AJ Green. But the good news is the Bengals play the Rams in like 2 weeks, so we'll still get AJ Green and Jalen Ramsey.
Potentially, yeah. That'll be good shit. Yeah, so I'm obviously rolling with the Jags on this one. The Bengals just haven't really shown me anything yet this season, man. It's tough. It's tough to be a Bengals fan. But let's kind of roll that into the state of the division. We're going to start from the bottom of the AFC North and work our way up. So, of course, that rolls right into the Bengals. So, Joey, where do you think the Bengals are right now? Where do you see them at the end of the season? And how, if at all, do you think they improve?
So, it seems like for the last several years, the story with the Bengals has been injuries, which really sucks. Because they're not a team that's going to make big splash free agent signings.
Right.
Because of ownership, if they're going to build, they're going to build through the draft. And that means if you string a couple bad drafts together and you miss on a first round offensive lineman, like that puts you in the hurt locker right away. Andy Dalton is coming towards the end of his time there. There's been some AJ trade rumors and some things like that. So as great as like a win against the Jags would be, I think any victories are moral victories, and it's almost hustling backwards for the Bengals to be winning football games at this point. If they have no intentions of locking up Andy Dalton or AJ Green long term, no intentions of locking down Andy Dalton, you know, like if this Mahomes injury is serious and the Chiefs think Matt Moore is not as good as Andy Dalton, which I think Andy Dalton's better than Matt Moore right now.
I think Andy Dalton's better than a lot of people give him credit for. One of the big knocks on him, has been interceptions, but even last year when we pointed it out, a lot of those interceptions were not necessarily his fault, right? And we're not talking the Baker Mayfield from last week. We're talking like legit no shit. So I think Andy Dalton is better than people give him credit for if he has a little bit of protection, which he hasn't had for years, and decent receivers, which he's only had one for a while. And then finally Boyd is starting to bud, you know? So, sorry, what you were saying?
Yeah, and there's been AJ to the Packers and AJ to the Patriots, and I think it's all just rumors and it's like in wrestling, they'd call it fantasy booking.
Right.
You know, like booking matches that you want to see. Like that's all it is. People are fantasy booking AJ Green, but if you can, the way that you're going to build is through the draft, and if you can get a third or a fourth for Andy Dalton, and you can get a first and a good player, or a second and a good player for AJ Green, like that's valuable for you as a franchise.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think the future's pretty bleak. You're on the back end of the best quarterback you've had in a long time, since like a year or two of Carson Palmer.
I was about to say, yeah.
But they got to start thinking about the rebuild now, I think, unfortunately.
Right. Almost tank for Tua, right? There was the joke of who's going to end up with the first round pick this year. Is it going to be the Bengals or the Dolphins? And it's funny because I want to say it was was it like 3 years ago when the Browns went 1-16, and then there's the year before. No, it was the year before that. So 4 years ago when they went 3-12 or whatever. They had actually won 0 games the entire season, but they had a lot of really close games that at the end they made some really stupid decisions that everyone's like, what the fuck, man? That lost them the game. But then once San Francisco got their first win of the season, the Browns got their first win. And they basically kind of like just stayed like just behind San Francisco and whoever else there was. And like, tinfoil hat, right? Throw it on. Obviously, it seems like they were tanking for the season. That's when Sashi just got there and they were starting to do the whole Moneyball thing. But I think that they were like intentionally kind of trying to stay behind the thing and lose games. So I think with, the Bengals and the Dolphins, it kind of becomes those things of like who can lose the best, which is funny because they're going to end up playing each other towards the end of the season. So yeah. I kind of want to see how that turns out. But yeah, it's definitely like a build for the future kind of thing. I think that if Bengals fans have any foresight or like, future sight at all, I think they would be able to see that the best thing for the organization right now would probably be to start seeing what you can get for those top players, right? Like Andy Dalton, he's still got some value to him. I really do think. Obviously, AJ Green's going to have some value to it. His injuries might take him away from being a first-round pick. I think maybe because people might not want to incur the risk. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, what was it? A third-round pick for? Well, then you get Amari Cooper was like
for
2
AB.
first, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that kind of turns out. But I think that they need to, moneyball it, right? And get what they can for who they have and start looking towards the future.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that sucks about it is if they fuck around and beat the Dolphins at the end of the year and they don't get Tua, that means you've now wasted 3 years of Joe Mixon.
Yeah, that's tough.
And with the shelf life on running backs running out, even a guy like Joe Mixon, when his rookie contract's up in 2 more years, somebody will pay him,
Mm-hmm.
Will the Bengals be willing to pay him? He's still a very talented running back.
Yeah.
And somebody will have a system that will support him and allow him to flourish if the Bengals don't. And that sucks, man, as a franchise to be stuck in that cycle of... But that's life as a Bengals fan. I mean, that's just how things are.
I'm like such a firm believer of building a strong offensive line first, because I think that if you give any quarterback, and not any quarterback, but any professional, enough comfortability and enough, I guess, understanding on the field, they'll be able to make it happen if there's an open receiver, right? If there's an open guy, I think a quarterback can throw it to him if he feels comfortable enough and he's protected enough. As far as running backs go, right, if you have a decent running back, but you've got a really good offensive line, but it sucks because it feels like the Bengals have been trying to build their offensive line and just been striking out, man, which is so awful. But yeah, man, start with the offensive line, get a decent quarterback, and then build from there. And by decent, I mean like a bridge, right? But again, the offensive line to me is something that we're seeing is just so important with all of these quarterbacks that are so good, but then have bad offensive lines, and they fall apart.
Yeah. I mean, Jonah Williams. So I think we're ready to call Billy Price a bust, pretty much.
Yeah.
I still think Jonah Williams, if he can come back healthy from this shoulder injury, playing offensive line at Alabama is like playing minor league professional football. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like it's the closest thing. So I still think that he has the potential to be like a cornerstone tackle,
Mm-hmm.
which is good, which means that if you're able to wheel and deal this year before the deadline and fuck around and get a first or a second for AJ or something like that, and you can still draft your quarterback and another nice piece on the offensive line, even if you get like a second and a third or something like that, and you can package things and move up, like there's things that can be done if you're savvy. And the Bengals have not been the most adept front office, but I mean, you can turn around quickly and have a couple young stud offensive linemen and a good quarterback. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it can be done, but there has to be an apparent plan.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like the Bengals are quite ready to commit to that yet.
So last, I guess, bullet point on the Bengals we'll use to segue to the Steelers. We had talked about it during the preseason. I don't know if Chad had joined us quite yet, but we had asked the question of who leaves the AFC North first, Ben Roethlisberger or Andy Dalton. And I don't remember what our responses were on that, but I guess we can take a second to revisit that.
Yeah, I still think I think I said it was Andy Dalton. Just because I don't think Ben will end up playing for anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
He just signed that 2-year extension. I don't think Andy Dalton's a Bengal for 2 more years. Which is part of why they need to trade him while they control him, because otherwise he's just going to turn into a free agent, and then you just lose him for nothing.
Right.
And you already have been, so it's been 2 years in a row that they've drafted quarterbacks. And you never draft a quarterback for a backup. Like, you draft a guy to see what kind of potential he has. Like, you can pick up undrafted quarterbacks or sign veterans. Like, you never need to draft for a backup. So they drafted Jeff Driscoll to see what he had. They drafted Ryan Finley to see what he had. And maybe they think they have the guy. Maybe they think Ryan Finley's the guy. And they're making the smart decision, not just tossing him in here behind 5 revolving doors as an offensive line and ruining him. Which would be a whole nother thing. If Ryan Finley's the answer, then you can beat Miami and have the 2nd or 3rd pick and get the best offensive lineman in the draft this year.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that have to happen here. But to answer your question, I think Dalton's out of the division before Ben.
Yeah. I still do kind of believe that, just because of what we were talking about before as far as getting some value from Andy Dalton if they're intelligent enough. He's still got a lot of career ahead of him, but I think the Bengals need to take a hard turn into rebuild mode. That being said, I don't know what Ben Roethlisberger still has left on him. He's every year getting injured, whatever. This year it looked, by watching the footage, it looked like a muscle spasm. It was just like, it was weird when you watched his arm. It just kind of looked like it kind of tweaked after he threw the ball, and then he's just out for the season, right? But I don't know. I feel like Ben Roethlisberger has like this ego about him where he just like doesn't want to stop because of maybe some ego. So like, it's like every time they draft some new stud or bring somebody else in, it's like he gets a little bit of pep in his step, as far as in the preseason or in the training camps, he has like this kind of little bit of energy from it. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Ben Roethlisberger because of that. I think injury is what's going to take Ben Roethlisberger out, and I think that you're right as far as I don't see him really playing for anybody else. He's just been in for so long now. So let's talk about the Steelers then. With Mason Rudolph, he should be coming back after. I think they said that he's going to come back after the bye week.
He's going to start next week.
I was about to say, I think he was already at practice or something, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's cleared protocol. He's back at practice. Tomlin came out and said he's our starter.
Right.
There's no QB controversy in Pittsburgh yet.
Yeah. Okay.
With old Duck Hodges.
Yeah. Should there be? I think is an interesting question. So let's talk about the Steelers. As I think the contentious position right now, obviously quarterback. Do you think the Steelers are invested in Mason Rudolph for the possible future?
I think for the immediate future, yes. Just depends what kind of development he can show this season. Right now, as it stands, they are not running the offense that they want to run because of Mason Rudolph's limitations.
Right.
Him and Devlin Hodges were basically, who's an undrafted quarterback, so both those guys are the same to me, basically. So that's another thing to me that lends itself to Ben going forward is I don't think either of those guys are as good as like Ryan Finley might be from what we saw in the preseason. So there's no apparent long-term future on the roster right now. But I think this Steelers team is also equipped to make a playoff push this year, even with Mason Rudolph. James Conner has been good enough. And if they're able to develop the passing game enough to keep teams from really stacking the box, this defense is fierce. This defense is really, really good, even without Stephon Tuitt. And they're kind of reminiscent of the Jaguars team that went to the AFC Championship game a couple years ago. The defense isn't that good.
Right.
But up front, they absolutely are every bit as good. But I think the offense is a little better, probably. Fournette, they didn't really have a run game or a pass game on that Jaguars team. Like the offense was truly just don't fuck this up. And if you get lucky and are able to move the ball, like right on.
Right.
But if you just win the turnover battle, the defense is good enough to win you football games. And I think that's going to be the book on the Steelers this year. Get James Conner involved as much as possible because he's awesome. And don't fuck it up. The games that they've lost this year, is the story's turnovers, except like the Niners game. Which they forced a bunch of turnovers and just lost. And now you turn around and the Niners are a juggernaut. So I think the Steelers are better than their record this year. And I think they'll make a push, if not for the division, just because being 2 games back could be a tough row to hoe more than a third of the way through the season. But they can absolutely contend for a wild card. That defense is very, very good.
I'm skeptical because of what they have ahead of them. Their schedule has been more of like the sprinkled as far as easy, wins and losses. Whereas like we talked about with the Browns, it was front loaded. With the Ravens, it's kind of in the center. With the Steelers, it's really kind of sprinkled all over the place, right? So they've still got coming up the Colts, the Rams, the Browns twice, which say what you will, but I think especially being
it's
in the
division game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's still contentious. The Ravens again, the Bills, which were still like, I guess, big question marks, but could potentially still be like a real deal team. And I am still there, man. I'm not sleeping on the Jets, especially now that Sam Darnold's back. I don't know if CJ Mosley will be back by the end of the season, but it's the second to last game. I'm still not sleeping on the Jets. So
that Bills game could be like a 10-6 classic.
It really could. It really could. Or maybe 16-17. No, but Jets, Bills. Anyways. So I'm not so certain. I think that the Steelers really have to kind of. I think that the Steelers' best option moving forward this year. So like we talked about the Bengals, kind of their best option was kind of tanking and getting what they can with their assets. I think the Steelers' best option moving forward this year is get as much work as you can out of Mason Rudolph to figure out as much as you can about him this year. Like that's your goal towards the end of the season. Yeah. I wouldn't even really say wins and losses at this point other than like, moral victories, because I personally do believe that maybe it's biased. I don't know. I'm sure Chad would say it was. But the Ravens and the Browns are the most contentious, teams right now in the division. So unless, of course, we figure out that Mason Rudolph is something different than what we think he is now, right? But I think that that's what's in their best interest. And I still see them sitting at the end of the division, or end of the season, third place in the division. I'm sure I just jinxed the hell out of myself and shot myself in the foot. But that's how I feel. So
it's very possible. I mean, the schedule stuff, they're 2-4, and 3 of their losses are to the Pats, the Niners, and the Seahawks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then the other one was to
Division
the Ravens in overtime.
Right.
With a third-string quarterback. So, I don't know. I've got a hot tip for Mike Tomlin. The best thing that you can do for evaluating Mason Rudolph is to keep him conscious. That's going to be crucial. You got to keep that guy awake and alert to be able to evaluate his abilities as a quarterback.
Really evaluate his awareness. Keep him on this plane of dimension if you fucking can.
No Doctor Strange stuff.
Yeah, right.
Just fucking keep him here.
So I don't know. I think that the Steelers, they have the ability to evaluate him as good as they can because of a strong offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. A good defense that will keep them in games. Their wide receivers are shoddy but still decent, right? As a unit. I don't mean individually. I mean as a unit, because obviously Juju is fantastic, right? And I think they got really lucky being able to transition from Le'Veon to James Conner. I think that was a huge win on their part. So I think they have every piece that they can to evaluate him, to figure out if he's going to be on the roster as a backup or if he's going to be, kind of tailored into something more, much to the dismay, I'm sure, of Ben Roethlisberger. But, so let's move our way up. The Cleveland Browns. Let me pull up their schedule real quick, actually, because
the old Brownies.
Yeah, their schedule should get significantly easier here coming up after the bye, especially starting off after the bye with the New England Patriots, right?
Doesn't get easier than that in Foxborough.
Exactly right. But overall, as far as strength of schedule goes, with the exception of the Patriots, the worst is kind of behind them. We were kind of questionable about what the Broncos were, but it's looking today, even against the against the Chiefs, who don't necessarily have the best defense. I'm not going to call them bad or anything like that, but they're definitely not the strongest. I think the the Broncos are obviously still struggling against them.
Yeah, don't buy the Broncos hype, guys.
Right.
Coming into this game, everybody was like, oh, the Broncos are surging and the defense got right and this and that. Well, the last 2 weeks when the Broncos have been surging, they beat the Titans, Marcus Mariota. So the Titans are a football team that say, you know what? They looked at their starting quarterback and they said, I think Ryan Tannehill might be better. Okay. And then the Chargers just got shit pumped by Duck Hodges and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
So take it easy on Denver, everybody.
Right. And then the big question mark would be the Bills game, which honestly, man, is the way that I see that game at this moment is, what was the saying I think that Chad said, or maybe it was you? Like shooting off all your toes or some shit like that. I don't remember, right? But it was good at whatever it was. I think the Browns can win that game against the Bills handily if they just don't hurt themselves. It sounds stupid, but protect the football, right? And don't get all those fucking penalties, man. I think that that's capable. But other than that, it's like Dolphins, Bengals, Cardinals, Steelers twice, Bengals again, right? The Ravens, which we'll see what comes of that. So think that the Browns have a healthy chance for the second place in the division at least. I think that's like pretty foreseeable for now. As far as if it's going to be good enough for the wild card, I don't know. Let's see. AFC. Let's kind of take a look.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, so the biggest concern for me with the Browns, big picture, is that the offense hasn't found an identity yet.
Right.
Like, they don't know what they are yet. And that's concerning because so we're 6 games into the season now. Like, the Browns need to find out what this needs to look like. You know, they've done the force the ball to OBJ thing a bunch.
Didn't work.
And it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
And they haven't yet gone like super run heavy. For one game, they went back to what makes Baker comfortable and the offense they ran last year, basically, which is just hit the open guy, help Baker out as a young quarterback with some pre-snap motion and some trickeration stuff, some things like that. And that worked wonderfully. And then they just reverted right back to like have Baker in the pocket for 5 seconds, chucking the ball downfield every play and playing from behind the sticks. Like,
there's even a little bit of that during the Seahawks game, I think, when they did play well. You know, there's a lot of short passes that were completed really well. You know, throwing to guys like Ricky Seals-Jones, right? Just because he's wide open. And then, you know, of course, once they were behind or at least in trouble, I would say, things just fell apart really quickly. So I don't know who's responsible for that, whether it's Freddie Kitchens calling plays, you know, from running back coach to head coach, or if it's Baker, maybe he has issues with that. I don't know that it would be because last year he seemed fine with it, but whatever the situation is, they need to be able to, you know, they need to be able to play 4 quarters of football, right? So
yeah, they need to learn how to win.
Yeah,
that's the big thing. And yeah, you said it sounded like dumb and simple,
but it's so true.
But the wins and losses bear it out. The statistics bear it out. If you win the turnover battle, you have an overwhelming likelihood to win the game.
Yeah.
And Baker's thrown 5 touchdowns and 11 picks this year, and that's not good.
No.
And he has to clean that shit up. He's got to throw the ball away more. He's got to dial back like the gunslinger stuff. Like it's what makes him fun and it's what makes him great and it matches his personality, but like he needs to learn that, especially in the NFL, like it needs to be controlled chaos, not just straight up chaos constantly.
Right. So obviously make use of the running backs, right? Plural, because Dontrell Hilliard's been doing pretty good as like a third down back this year. Nick Chubb, I mean, he's so fucking good, man. I really, really hope that he stays healthy and they keep him for the long haul. You know, Myles Garrett, I think if he stays with the franchise and re-signs with them in a couple of years, you know, those kinds of things. I'm looking, because I'm starting to look at the team and they're still young and there's still a lot of them that are on, obviously, their rookie contracts and so forth, but I'm really hoping that everything can stay together for years to come. Which is kind of a long look to be looking at, but what was I just looking at?
Yeah, that's the other thing. This Browns team had a lot of really high expectations, but just be patient, guys. Like, they're building a winner. We're seeing it. Like, this is still not 1-15, 0-16, 3-13. This team is different. And it takes time.
Right.
Like, they didn't even have a winning record last year.
They haven't had one in
4 years, like
5 years.
A winning record is still a step in the right direction. Like, be patient. Don't be the fan base that mires in shit for a decade and then like sees glimpses and all of a sudden turns into this like unbearable, impatient, whiny, spoiled brat. Like, just relax, guys. if you don't win the Super Bowl in 2 years removed from being 0-16, everything will be okay. Like,
Right.
it's not time to hit the panic button on your second year quarterback and his brand new wide receiver and your second year running back and your first year head coach yet.
Right. Antonio Callaway needs to keep growing, man, for sure. There was some pretty high expectations from him, and it looks like he has the ability to get open and be able to run better routes, because last year he was kind of just like a go guy. But man, he's not catching the ball, and it's not just him, right? So we obviously have to do some common denominator type stuff with Baker and the play calling and stuff. But it shows me at least that he's able to get open or get into spots where he can make big catches. Is Kareem Hunt coming back for the Patriots?
No, because of the bye week.
Okay, yeah. That's
so right. He has to miss 8 games.
Okay, yeah, not 8 weeks. Yeah, so that would have been nice. But they have him coming, right? So with having Hilliard, who even as a third string back is going to be fantastic, in that sense. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, hopefully they can kind of get pounding the rock, right? If the offensive line can get some lanes open. So we did talk a little bit about wild card status with them. I think that their contention is going to be the Bills, and looking at the Bills, they have a pretty easy schedule this year. So if the Bills are anything of what people are assuming that they are, they very well might have the chance to secure a wild card spot. So the rest of the season, the Bills' toughest opponent, honestly, is the Browns, maybe the Cowboys, but the Cowboys are kind of teetering right now as far as figuring out who they are. Obviously, the Patriots. Because who else are they playing? They're playing the Redskins, the Eagles. Ravens. They are playing the Ravens. That's true. So they're playing the Redskins, the Eagles, the Steelers, the Cowboys, who I think that they can win against, the Dolphins, the Jets, who, I'll ride that hype train and everything. But in a reality kind of standpoint, we don't really know if that's a game that they are going to lose, right?
They're 1-5.
The chance.
No one knows, yeah.
Right. They have the chance to make it to the playoffs as a wild card.
Sure.
So then, looking at the rest of the AFC, the Raiders.
In the AFC, there's normally
Colts,
like 3
maybe?
or 4 teams that are like 8-7 going into week 17, and
right.
The Bills could very easily be one of them.
Yeah. And again,
we'll be missing the Titans this year, so it looks like someone's going to need to step up and fill that spot.
Yeah, I think the Texans are probably going to win the South, and then maybe the Colts or the Jags, could be the other, competition for the Browns. But again, they're supposed to be having the easy part of their schedule come up. So I think that it's still possible, and I still think the Browns are going to could be over 500 this year. So looking at you. So, all right, let's move on and close it out with the Ravens.
Oh, one more note on the Browns. This year, it's imperative that they find a way to get Rashard Higgins back in the fold.
Yeah, man.
On offense. They have to. He's Baker's favorite target.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was healthy last week and didn't get a snap is insanity to me.
Yeah.
In a close football game. Like, I don't care who your other receivers are. Like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah, it's like this morale kind of thing of we're going to come back from the bye week and it's going to be awesome because we're going to have hopefully Greedy, whatever. But Denzel Ward will be back. Hopefully Rashard Higgins will be back. So looking at the game right after would be the Broncos. So hopefully we will have the full complement of the roster. But like I said, coming back after the bye week, all those guys should be healthy, but they're playing the Patriots, so
yeah,
that could be a gritty game, right? Let's just put it that way. I would say that their goal without getting too deep, because we'll cover that in the preview episode for that game, but is to stay healthy throughout the entirety of the game, and like I said, stay healthy throughout the entirety of the game, because if they can keep the full complement of the roster for the rest of the season, I think that they have the ability to win out. Right. But
also, in line with my preaching patience, like don't get too excited about this Patriots game. It's in Foxborough.
right.
Bill Belichick is very, very good. The Patriots have had their challenges on offense. They've got some injuries on the line. They may not have Josh Gordon. I don't think he's going to play this week.
Mm-hmm.
So they have some stuff to work through, and so that could leave them vulnerable. But just use it as a measuring stick. Like, it'll be Baker's first time, I'm pretty sure, going into Foxborough. Like, that can be a really daunting place to play for all these young guys. Like, so just go in there and let it rip and see how it turns out. Because you know what? No matter how bad you lose, chances are it won't be 30-3. So you can say, well, at least we played better than the Steelers did. You know? Like,
Right, yeah.
Foxborough is a place for moral victories if it's not in the
Right.
playoffs. Like, in the regular season, like, the record in Foxborough is impeccable. And so to go in there and be competitive, like, that says something.
Yeah. The Browns and the Patriots, the last time they met was in 2016, and it was Tom Brady's first game back after the suspension, and he fucking let him have it. So I just looked up the score. It was only 33-13, but man, I just remember watching that game, and it was fucking abysmal. But
this one should be different. And without getting into a full-fledged like preview,
right.
Special teams could be very, very, very important in that football game.
Yeah, Baker's
and the Browns
injury,
are a plus special teams unit
yes,
this year.
Baker's injury should not be affecting him, is what the reports say, but we'll see, man.
What is that? A hip something?
Injury. Yeah, it was tough, man. Even watching him like trying to get off the field late in the game, you could tell he had that like stiff walk, that Mahomes walk. Do you ever notice Patrick Mahomes walks real stiff?
Yeah,
it's so funny.
He walks like he's in an old Western.
It's so weird, man. But anyways, yeah, and he wasn't. Something Sam noticed, my wife, was that he was not celebrating touchdowns because he just like threw the touchdown and just kind of walked off the field like kind of stiff, you know, which is very uncharacteristic. So I hope that Baker's healthy.
I mean,
everybody
bad teammate,
does, right? Yeah, you know, bad teammate.
Textbook bad teammate.
He's like,
stuff.
well, I didn't fucking run it in myself. Yeah, went and gave himself a high five. Anyways, yeah, let's move on to the Ravens. We've gotten so deep right now into the Patriots game, but I think because it's important because it's so indicative of what the Browns could have to come. But anyways, moving on, Ravens. Let's talk about the Ravens. They're in first place right now in the division. They have kind of their tough part coming up here. So let's talk about the Ravens.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me, I think, right now is 2-1, first time through the division. That's what's most important to me. No matter how the wins and losses stack up as far as who you beat, if you do that the second time around the division, that's 4-2 in the division, and that means that you're dealing losses to everybody else, and it's pretty hard to lose a division if you go 4-2. So that is definitely a positive. The Ravens have by no means had a murderer's row of opponents this year, but they've done, for the most part, what you expect them to do. So they've come out of the easy stretch of their schedule with the number one yardage offense in the league.
Right.
Which I don't think anybody would have predicted this year.
No.
Outside of like people that work in Owings Mills in the Ravens facility. Like maybe. You know? The defense has been their Achilles, especially on the back end for a unit that we thought was going to be the strength of the defense. It's just been ravaged by injuries. And so Marcus Peters shows up in the form of some reinforcements, and Jimmy Smith will be back. But that's it. No one else is coming back to this defense. Tony Jefferson's out for the year. Tavon Young's out for the year. Like, those guys aren't coming back. So it'll be if the Ravens win this Sunday, it'll be a testament to Don Martindale, I think. And really this whole season, like he's starting 2 veteran linebackers that were not on the week 1 roster at inside linebacker. Like the pass rush has not been what we expected of it. He's had to coach games without Brandon Williams. And so this is really a test of his savvy the rest of the season. But the next 5-game stretch is horrendous. So the Ravens play the Seahawks, and then they have a bye and play the Patriots at home, which is nice. Then they play Cincinnati. I'm going off the top of my head here. So
hold on, I
think then they play like the Niners in there.
So they play the Seahawks, Patriots, Bengals, then Texans, Rams, Niners, Bills. Jets, again, I'm not sleeping.
Bills is a thumbs down for me. I'm not worried about the Bills.
Okay. Browns, and then close it out with the Steelers.
So I think right now, I don't remember what my preseason stuff was. I think I don't know. They could win any of those games. But they could lose any of those games. I don't think any. I think the Niners might be the best team in football right now.
Mm-hmm.
Given what we've seen from them the last several weeks, the way they dismantled the Rams, the way they dismantled the Browns, they've been really good.
Yeah.
And their sample size is growing, and Shanahan's been a fucking wizard. And I have a new man crush in the NFL, Robert Saleh. You know who that is?
Mm-mm.
It's the 49ers defensive coordinator. His last name's spelled Saleh. Look him up.
Okay.
When I saw him during the Monday Night Football game, I thought he was like the strength and conditioning coach.
That's what I was about to say. I actually looked at this dude and I was like, oh, he must be like a D-line coach or something.
Because he was like fucking fired up as hell.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, that's definitely, he's bald. I was like, that's definitely the strength and conditioning coach. That's their defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
They've got all kinds of like guys on their coaching staff. Wes Welker is the receivers coach. So like they've got a really young, like plugged in coaching staff. The 49ers are really good. The Rams are kind of reeling right now, but Jalen Ramsey, we'll see how that helps them out. But they just put Aqib Talib on the IR. So that's like a 1 step forward, 1 step back type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Pats, the Ravens could win any of these games. Which is, I think, the most you could say about it. Lamar has developed enough that he can go and win you games. And that's fantastic. He cares about the win almost incessantly. Mark Ingram has been fantastic. I'm all in on this Ravens offense. If the defense can tread water and slowly through the season kind of find themselves, that's ideal, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think they're very capable of winning the division. If Patrick Mahomes is going to be out for a while, I think the ceiling for the Ravens, if everything breaks right, the ceiling for the Ravens could be a first-round bye. I think that's within reach. Mm-hmm. They've handled business the way they should through the easy part of the schedule. And if they can really get rolling and the defense can find its legs in this hard part, then they can find themselves in a pretty good situation down the stretch.
So I will say upside to kind of flip the argument of they've had an easy schedule for the most part so far. So if you look at that schedule though, regardless of how easy it was, coming out of it with the top offense in football effectively right now, with Lamar Jackson breaking records on a regular basis. Like, that's what you want coming out of that, right? You don't want to say, well, we were 4-2 or whatever, and we had some easy games, but we won them, and, you know, nothing really to kind of, you know, no real candles to put on the cake, right? Nothing really special about it. But they're winning games, and there's a lot special about the games that they are winning. So I think that says a lot about their offense and the potential for their offense moving forward through the rest of the season. The toughest defense that they have to play this year so far is going to be the Patriots for sure. And then questionably the Rams. Again, we really don't know what to think of them. So with that, if their offense is as good as it is, if it is the real deal and can stand up to some average plus tier defenses, again, with the exception of like the Patriots, that can mean a lot for them. Now, the flip side of it is that dichotomy, right? The thing that we talked about last week. The Ravens defense is not at all what it's been known for, what it's always been.
It's not good.
Right.
Their defense is not good.
Yeah, I mean, just call it what it is, right? I mean, Who would have thought that losing Zadarius Smith, C.J. Mosley, Terrell Suggs, all at the same time in the same season would have been that impactful? However, I also, like, honestly, in my heart, I think that their offense is performing better than even they thought that they were going to. I thought that they were
performing better
safe.
than I could have imagined.
Right. I think that they thought that they were safe by getting rid of those guys on defense, because they were like, well, you know, Lamar's going to have to take a couple years to progress anyways, so we'll take a couple years to rotate some guys out, get some picks, and build the defense again. But I think this year they're like, holy shit, we got to figure this out now, because we could win the division, right? So I think that the Ravens have the possibility to win the division and be number one. You know, that being said, I still think the Browns might have that chance too also. You know, if it comes to find out and it comes to fruition that these teams that they're playing at that end part of their schedule just really best them, it's entirely possible that the Browns get to the playoffs. And even so, with like an 8-8, 7-8 or 7-9 schedule, you know, it could be weird, because I think the Ravens defense is just, it's tough. It's tough.
I think the one possible like positive spin that you can put on it, so the Browns game, it was tackling. Tackling was horrendous. They didn't give up like the huge plays, busted coverage type stuff that had been their MO earlier in the year, but tackling was very bad. Mm-hmm. That's fixable, I think, because it's mostly the same guys that were on the team last year that didn't have a tackling problem.
Yeah.
So that's only been like a one game problem, and I'm not as worried about that. And so other than that, the biggest problem has been busted coverage. And Earl Thomas has still only played 6 games in this defense. So he'll get more comfortable. If guys can stop getting injured, you know, like the secondary can only get better theoretically, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's my take on the defense. If they can tread water, the offense is good enough to put up points and hang with anybody. They can sustain drives. I do have a little bit of hesitation with the offense as far as if they're forced to pass, can they score in a hurry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough.
I don't think we've really seen that ability yet. The only wrinkle there is a lot of times in late game passing situations, there's lots of running lanes for quarterback. That's when scrambling quarterbacks really, really start to fucking frustrate you as a fan of the team playing defense, trying to stop a drive, like in obvious passing situations. So there's lots of positivity around the Ravens. They can win any game that they're in because of the nature of the offense. Last week they ran an 18 play, 8.5 minute drive, which by play count was the longest drive in the NFL this year. Like, they're capable of doing that at any given time. just deciding we're going to run the ball 3 times for a first down, So it's weird. I find myself a lot of times not really knowing how to talk about this team because I've never had to talk about a team that relies on their offense and the defense stinks. And so it's new for me. But I do have, as far as Lamar goes, Lamar has exceeded any expectations I've had as developing. I think he's developed very nicely as a passer, and he's also very clearly conscious of protecting himself when he's running, which is the most important thing for a mobile quarterback like him. But he was asked in yesterday's press conference by a reporter, how does it feel for guys like you and Russell Wilson to prove dual threat QBs can succeed? And Lamar said, I don't care. I just want to win. And the reporter said, how does MVP buzz feel? And Lamar said, I don't care. I just want to win.
That's good.
And for me, like,
yeah, he itched
man, like when you didn't think you could love a guy more. And his interview after the game in Cincinnati was like the same thing. He just seemed so just like beside himself and elated that the team won. And it seems genuine. It doesn't seem kind of forced how like sometimes the Russell Wilson like quarterback speak hokey stuff can get. Yeah. And as much as I love like the brashness of Baker Mayfield, man, I am really enjoying everything about Lamar Jackson right now, including his personality. He seems like a great guy until 3 weeks from now, TMZ fucking leaks a video of him.
Yeah, doing something stupid
outside a club. Yeah.
But
for now, he's great.
Yeah, man, it's kind of cool because he seems a little like beside himself, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like someone who's like a kid just really enjoying the moment, and I think that's kind of cool. Opposite of Baker Mayfield, whose brashness is cool, but it's only cool when you're winning, kind of a thing. Like when you're not winning, it's kind of like, all right, man, like. Yeah. Just put a W up. But so as far as as a whole, I think what we see right now is kind of what we can both generally kind of agree on where the division is. Although I will say that the Browns and the Ravens, it really does feel a lot like a coin flip. The Ravens are 2 games ahead of the Browns right now, but again, the Ravens are going into the tough part of their schedule. The Browns have really been hurting themselves. So if they figure out how to, like, I don't know, when there's less than 2 minutes before the half, just run the football instead of getting it to Russell Wilson twice, like things like that. Or, when you have Nick Chubb, one of the most explosive fucking running backs in the AFC right now, and you're on the half-yard line, just give him the ball for 3 downs and see if we'll make it across the goal line, So
maybe even 4 downs.
Yeah, maybe even 4.
Fuck it.
So, but there you go. Maybe we'll get a little bit of Chad's opinion. Maybe he can comment on it, or we'll get a little bit of his remarks for Tuesday's episode, which again he will not be here for, and we'll still only have 2 games to talk about. So we'll get his input.
Blah blah blah. Steel curtain. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Jerome Bettis. Blah blah. 6 rings.
I was about to say we've got 6 rings. Anyways. Well, that's pretty much it for the division. Pigskin Pick'ems, though, guys. Pigskin Pick'em is still going strong. Last week, what was it? It was Brian that ended up winning the Pick'em. Maybe we'll start having people on if we can.
He tied with me and one other person.
I think it was Bones, actually.
Yeah, it was.
But man, Pick'em is so tough this year. I feel because like. Halfway into the season, we're still kind of like, well, maybe the Bills are the real deal, maybe not. And again, like you were saying, I'm on the same boat as you, but like you were saying with the Broncos, some people are like, man, maybe the Broncos are kind of hot. I don't know. The Chiefs are just about to potentially lose Mahomes. There's so many teams that we're just like, I don't know. Like the Eagles, does anybody really know what the Eagles are?
I don't.
The Cowboys, does anybody really know what the Cowboys are, even at this point into the season?
And they're just going to play each other on Sunday night. And so no one's still going to know anything.
So it's tough, man. So that being said, fucking credit goes out to, like Brian, who's top of the what's it called? the pick'ems right now. Harry Bananas, right? We've talked about him a couple times. He's been at the top of the pick'ems. He's had like one or two like pretty bad weeks, but other than that, he's won a couple of times. So hat definitely tipped to you guys for and Joey for figuring out those like really close games, or figuring out those the gambles, taking the right gambles. But it's tough. But let's talk about some of our picks. Maybe you'll be more interested in Joey's than mine. But first, let's talk about our Mistress pick, which if you haven't been with the podcast for a while, the Mistress is kind of like, you've got your home team. Like I've got the Browns. That's the woman I take home every night, right? But then on the side, there's kind of like, man, that one's looking pretty fucking nice, right? So which pick are you picking for your Mistress this week, Joey?
So I think my Mistress this week should come as no surprise. It's the Jaguars.
Ooh, nice.
I mean, I think they're going to have their way on offense and defense. I think they're built to exploit the Bengals. Like, they're almost the perfect team to exploit the Bengals.
Yeah.
As far as their pass rush is killer, their run game is killer. So, and AJ Green will be back, so it'll be fun to watch that game and root against the Bengals.
So, of course, you're picking the Jags. I'm also picking the Jags on that one. Locked it up. So my Mistress this week, I think is kind of a strange one, but I like it, actually. I'm picking the Lions over the Vikings, actually. I'm interested to see what the Lions are, and I'm interested to see them actually start to pull their shit together and be a little more credible. Credible might be a little tough on them. I don't know. And the Vikings, man, there's so many question marks around those guys. It's fucking tough. So I think it would be really exciting to see the Lions come out on top against the Vikings. So I picked that one for my Mistress. I really don't know. It's not like, I don't think it's like that sexy pick, but it's one that I think would be really nice to see that W for the Lions. So
yeah, the NFL owes them after they butt fucked them on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
I picked the Vikings.
Well, man. Yeah.
They seem to have figured out their offense, and Kirk Cousins is out there fucking letting it rip. He got his first win of his career against a team with a record over 500 last week.
That's right.
Even though it's the Eagles, and we're not really sure what I think it pretty much dooms the Eagles to be under 500 for the season. Like, Kirk Cousins is a pretty consistent measuring stick for these types of things.
Right.
But I'm on the Vikings. I've got Stephon Diggs on my fantasy team, so I want to see him do well.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to make of the Lions yet. I'm not sure I think they're good, maybe.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, but I really want them to be successful. So my buddy Derek lives in Detroit, so I know he doesn't watch the podcast. Maybe he'll watch this one. But I'm pulling for you, man. I'm pulling for you.
From the D.
From the D. So let's talk about our heartbreak pick. That's basically the pick that you're just like, I don't fucking know, man. This is tough. I have no idea. And it does not feel good, but I close my eyes, I click the button, and that's who I'm going with. So who's your heartbreak pick, Joey?
My heartbreak pick, luckily I don't have to watch this game because it's on the same time as the Ravens play on Sunday. Chargers at Titans. Like, the fact I would almost rather just not even pick this football game.
Right.
The Titans just lost 16-0 to the Broncos and Joe Flacco. And the Chargers just lost at home to Devlin Hodges in a game that was like 24-0 entering the fourth quarter, or 24-3. Like,
yeah.
Ugh, what the fuck, guys? Melvin Gordon's out here like lobbying for more carries. It's like, bro, you sat out like the first 4 games of the year. Shut up.
Right.
Like,
right.
But this will be Ryan Tannehill's first start for the Tennessee Titans. Ugh. But he could come in and like
light it up.
Slay. Yeah. Well,
That'd
I
be
don't
so
know.
funny. I don't know. We already kind of alluded to it, I guess, but the Cowboys and the Eagles, man, it's fucking tough. Like, we really don't know who either of the teams are, first off. Second off, Amari Cooper's probably going to be out, is what it's looking like more and more. Both of them have a completely in-fucking-sufferable fan base, so sometimes I pick that way when it comes to picking against the Eagles and the Cowboys. So it's like, who's less insufferable? I don't fucking know. But honestly, I'm just gonna stick with the haters club, and I picked the Eagles. I guess I don't know. Honestly, I think that Dallas probably is truly the better football team. But with Amari Cooper being out, I think that's kind of what tips it over the scale for me. And I got to stay true to my hater roots.
I picked the Cowboys. They're at home, and their defense is good.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles' defense is really bad. Especially their secondary has been bad. But yeah, people forget that this Cowboys offense was atrocious before they signed Amari Cooper last year.
Right.
Who's your pick in the Chargers-Titans game?
Oh, I picked the Chargers. I just Tannehill, and I can't pick for Tennessee after game one. I just can't do it.
One thing in Tennessee's favor, Yodel Boy is singing the national anthem at the game.
Oh, look at that! Good for him.
So, if for some reason you have to bet this game, there's a little tip for you. There's a little.
Yeah, Yodel Boy.
Don't bet on this fucking football game. The Chargers and the Titans are two teams you should not be betting for or against for anybody. I don't understand how 65% of Yahoo people watched the fucking Chargers last week and were like, yeah, they'll beat the Titans.
Yeah, sign me up.
yeah, in Tennessee.
Right. Another game actually that I guess going outside of the bounds of mistresses and heartbreaks that I'm actually really excited to see is which I'm probably not gonna watch it, but I'm excited about is the Colts and the Texans, man. Like, I really like the Texans. I pulled for them a bunch last year. This year, going into the season, I'm pulling for them even more. Apparently, Will Fuller's having some trouble, which is heartbreaking. But then on the other side of things, the Colts, their defense is like so good, and then Jacoby like just killing it this season. When I think everybody was pretty much kind of down and out on him, to me is like such an awesome fucking story. So it's like I feel like no matter who wins out of that game, I'm gonna feel good about it, and I think it has the potential to be a really fun football game. So
yeah, it'd probably be a slobber knocker.
I did pick the Texans though.
It'll almost certainly be close. I picked the Texans too. I think Deshaun Watson's playing on another level. The Colts are getting Darius Leonard back this week.
Oh,
their second-year middle linebacker who led the league in tackles last year. So,
right.
Both these teams are really good. So should be fun. I think one place where the Colts get the nod is coaching. Bill O'Brien fucking stinks.
Yeah.
He doesn't make adjustments.
Yeah.
He's horrible.
I was just looking it up. So, yeah, Will Fuller, of course, like we were saying, for being healthy as long as he has not been living up to his past seasons, with the exception of against the Falcons. Yeah, fucking 217 yards receiving with 3 touchdowns, man. Good for him. That's all I got to say, man. Fucking, that's awesome. But, yeah. Well, that's pretty much it as far as worthwhile pick'ems. Yeah, man. So the Chiefs and the Broncos, what is it, like 27-6 now or something?
Sure is.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's just easy money. Easy money.
Yeah, just make
the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs minus 3.5 on Sunday night for this game. I was like, sign me up, bro.
Yeah.
Against Joe Flacco.
Hell yeah. Got this. Nice. Ogba.
Matt Moore has outscored the Broncos 7-0 in this football game.
Nice. Ogba got a sack. Got to pay tribute. Look, man, if you were there for the 0-16, you're forever in my heart. So
Respect.
Yeah. But I think that's it for the podcast, though. That's it for tonight. This is a long one. I mean, we talked about every team and a lot of
state of the division.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So But yeah, so thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for sticking by. Hopefully you stuck this long with us to hear us rant about some shenanigans. But with that, tell your friends, tell your family, get them to listen as well, because it's always good to have a couple more people to interact with. And with that, of course, interact with us. We've got polls. We'll put it up on the polls as far as so we'll do the 2 polls that we have for the Bengals and the Ravens. But I think another interesting poll will be who between the Browns and the Ravens, who's kind of top dog in the division. I don't know. I think it's still too early for that. I don't know.
Chad might take offense to that, actually.
You think so? Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, then we'll leave it out for now. We'll give it a couple more games for him to just kind of concede. But yeah, man, interact with us. Come watch us live on Thursdays and Tuesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube. Check us out. It's good stuff. It's good fun. But that's it. That's it for the week. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening this long. We appreciate you. You got anything else, Joey?
Lamar Jackson's the only quarterback to ever win Air Player of the Week and Ground Player of the Week in the same season.
Like I said, man, that's
also only quarterback to ever win Ground Player of the Week, period. But
nice.
The other one sounds better.
All right, guys. Take it easy. See you Tuesday. Thanks.
Deuce.